Absolutely. It is an honor and a pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, this is gonna be wonderful. Everybody that is coming in, just the conversations that we were starting to have, I was like, oh, what? So, this is and then, I know that a lot of people who really are interested in this segment. Like I said, a lot of people have obtained replays, so um you're not gonna regret this at all. So first thing I do want to say is congratulations on those sorority dresses. What, if anything, can you tell us about them? And I hope you'll come back down the road and tell us more about them.
Absolutely. So, what I can tell you is that I'm a proud member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. And it gives me great pleasure to be able to, take my extracurricular life, like my Zeta life. And as a Greek, what we do, right? And the work that we do for our organization. So being able to take something that I live and breathe and actually have it a part of my job was just so fulfilling. What I can tell you is that it is an inclusive collection of dresses. It is not a one-time collection. So you will be seeing many, many, many more designs in this year to come from this collection. The Casper Group has created this collection and they are a fabulous partner. And these dresses are available in 220 Macy's locations.
Oh,
And they are selling like hotcakes. So make sure that you get yours.
I
But
gotta
they are
get mine.
they are just fabulous. They're forgiving. They are what we needed. And they just, they were designed to really celebrate, the work that we do in our organizations. And I'm just so proud of, not only the collection, but the response that, my sorors and sorors of the other organizations, have responded to the need for this attire. And, it warms my heart because a golden member of your sorority said to me on a travel, she said, I waited 50 years for someone to care. And, that it just touched my heart because, the work that we do should be celebrated. It absolutely should be celebrated. And it's nice that now, there is light on our organizations and a fashion powerhouse, department store, America's department store like Macy's.
Yeah, I am so looking. I gotta get mine. Literally, y'all. I'm like, I just found out about it, but I'm like, what? Oh my gosh! Sorry. That means I need to pay more attention to the news. But I gotta go. I gotta go online and order my dress and figure out which one or two or three or four that I want to get. So this is exciting, and we want to make sure all the HBCUs know all about them, and y'all just stay tuned and pray we can talk more about that later. With that
Absolutely.
said, let's talk about fashion merchandising. You were giving me an overview. So jumping into the conversation about fashion merchandising, if you had to give a job description of it, what would that job description include?
So, fashion merchandising is huge. There are so many different available positions within the merchandising pyramid in an organization, and there's so many job responsibilities. As a buyer, I will tell you that it is my responsibility to put the product in the store, right? So, in the department store, in Macy's, that you are buying. So, I am responsible for all of day dresses. And as I was sharing with you earlier, Carla, I'm already buying spring 23. So I know what you're going to be wearing next spring in regards to day dresses before you even do. And when you think about all of the different retailers and all of the different, boutiques and companies, this is the standard across. And so, merchandising is definitely not just one thing. It is a team of people. There are many different careers within the merchandising pyramid that you can go into.
Hmm. And that merchandise, if you, not a fair question, so if you don't answer, um, but as I'm thinking about this is something I want to do now, just in the conversation that we just had backstage. If you had to put together a map of the different parts of the fashion merchandising, and this is an impromptu question, so what are some of the parts that you might put into it?
So I would look at the buyer as like the center, right?
Right.
So like we kind of we put everything together. We touch every single aspect of merchandising. So then you have your financial planner, you have a merchandise planner or an assortment planner, you have your pricing manager, you have your marketing managers, you have your sizing manager. I mean, you have all of these different people, right, that make up the components to be able to get a single dress like this in a store. But the buyer is really the center because we touch all these pieces and we have to influence all of these pieces. Like I have to sign off on marketing before it goes out to the public. So, yes, my responsibility is to dress and to get that dress in the store. But, the marketing team goes out, right? And they pick the models and they shoot the product with the photography studio and all of these other components. But then before that actually gets set to print or set to go live on television, I have to get a copy of proof of that. And I have to make sure that it is the aesthetic of what I was buying. And that was my intent. And it represents the brand that I'm buying. So, to put it all into perspective, there are literally so many people that touch every piece of, when you think about fashion, right? That, like I said, this simple dress. But, the buyer is really the center of that.
Yeah, we have to talk later, put together a map because I mean, wow. Wow.
And something else that people don't realize is that you should touch all of those pieces because they all influence each other, and having an experience in one and then moving to and have an experience in another just makes you all around a well-rounded merchant, right? A well-rounded person that's in the merchandising fashion industry. And something I shared with you earlier, this buyer role is new to me. I was an assistant buyer straight out of college and, became a senior assistant buyer. But after that, I kind of changed paths and I went to become a merchandise planner. And the merchandise planner's responsibility is really like I like to say I own the checkbook. Like I was responsible to tell my buyer, listen, this is how much you can buy, and to keep her or him grounded in what they could buy. And then everything from the stores, knowing, what to send to this store, to that store, sizing, right? Down to the size level. That's really what a merchandise planner does. And I did that for the most intermediate part of my career. That's where most of my experience is. And so, for 6 years, I was a merchandise planner. And then now to get into this buyer role 2 years in, I mean, I'm only a great buyer because I had that merchandise planning experience. So now when I'm assorting product, I know that I can't send velvet to a warm store. So I need to know that I need to be able to swap that style out and give my Florida doors, my California doors, those locations something else. So all of that experience is because I did have experience in merchandise planning, which I'm able to use now as a buyer.
That's very good. That's very good for somebody to think about what they should do, what kind of knowledge they should have under their belt stepping into that role.
Absolutely.
What do you say why should someone consider a role as the role that you have because you're director and the buyer? Yeah. Why should someone consider a role in the buying in that fashion merchandising arena?
So for me, I love to be able to influence, and I'll say that, representation matters. And so when you look across, any company and you look at, some companies' diversity strategies and some of those things, when you get to this buyer level, representation does become a challenge across the entire industry. And so me being in this role and being able to influence the simplest things, but make a huge difference to communities like the Black community. Like I'll give you an example. I wasn't even a buyer at this point. I was a merchandise planner. And when I stepped into the role, I was in social dresses, right? So I did all gowns, like evening gowns, but as a merchandise planner. And when I first took that role, I noticed that there was like a bunch of dresses that had like a mesh covering. And as we do a lot of traveling to different stores to see products, see what it looks like on the floor, make sure it's our vision, all of these things. And I said to my buyer at the time, these dresses are beautiful, but I can't wear them. And she goes, well, what do you mean you can't wear them? And I said, well, if you look at the mesh, when you put that mesh on, that doesn't go with my skin tone. That goes with your skin tone. And so something as simple as that sparks an idea. That's not inclusive. How do we make the dresses inclusive? So now a girl like me, right? A woman like me can go in that store and feel confident to buy that dress. And it doesn't leave her out. So for me, the reason why I think it's so important for our young aspiring Black professionals to know that there are so many different lanes that you can go in the fashion industry. And there's so many ways that you can influence across a company just by being at the table, right? I think that that's important for people to know that there are so many opportunities. When I told my parents that I wanted to do fashion, they were like, but you can't draw. Like, what do you mean you want to do fashion? You're not a designer. And I'm like, there's other jobs than just being a designer. But at the time I didn't know. I was like, you're right, Mom. Oh my gosh, I get in my head. And then after speaking to people, meeting people, that's how I found out about that there's a merchandise planner, there's an assortment planner, there's a buyer, there's a pricing manager, there's a sizing manager, all these different components that still make up, right, what the fashion industry is all about, and equally have an important role, just as important as a designer. So I think that that's like the most important piece for me for everyone to understand is that, we need to see the representation in the fashion industry. And this is how you can influence.
That is so powerful. I mean, okay, look, wait, I gotta soak up everything you just said. I mean, I never would have thought about the dress and the skin tone. Thank you. Thank you for being, well, we already know you were divinely placed there, but that's a conversation for another day. But thank you for that information. One of the conversations we're gonna have, it just reminds, one of the conversations we're gonna have tomorrow is with Judy Townsend. And we're gonna talk about the mannequins. So I'm gonna save that for some things that she told me about and I was floored, never thought of. But that just opens my mind up about that. We need us in these positions so we're getting designs that bring us out. That's correct. And then you talked about that, your parents. This is something I always bring up too. What words of advice do you offer for anyone who may want a career in fashion and their parents may not understand that there are opportunities, because career days like this went around then, So what words of wisdom do you offer them?
Block out all the noise, all the noise. Our parents love us, right? They always have our best interests in mind and at heart. But when you know that something is your passion and it's something that you, even if you want to pursue it, you want to try it, go for it. Block out all of the noise, and just focus on it and go after it. And I will tell you, the fashion industry is a rewarding one. It definitely, it takes some time to get where you're going. But when you are on that right path, the opportunities are endless, and it is a small industry. So I will tell you, when you start breaking into this industry, you don't want to burn any bridges because everyone knows everyone. And as big as you think the industry is, that's how small it is. And I've worked for several companies in my earlier years in my career. And, I have full circle, have worked with people from one company to the next because of the way people just move around. So, block out all the noise if it's something that you really want to do and just go after it because it is so rewarding. I can't tell you the most rewarding feeling is being at a wedding as a guest and sitting back and saying, that's my dress, that's my dress, that's my dress. And just seeing people in your product, seeing people feel beautiful, seeing people feel glamorous, right? It's such a rewarding feeling to just, be able to observe that.
Yeah, you went right to that question. Thank you so much. Because I was going to say, what are the rewards? What are the benefits? So, and that goes with the real, in my mind, the way you've embraced it as the real purpose of fashion. Talk about that, that purpose of fashion.
Yeah, I mean, we put on clothes to look good, right? Every day. It's that's what we do. Your clothing almost tells a story about who you are, right? And so it's important to know that, there are people in this position that are thinking about all of these things before you do. And so to know that as Black consumers, we represent trillions in spending power, right? And then to know that there are people at the table making decisions of what you'll wear, right? What skin tone that stocking will be available in for you, even down to the simple fact of during induction season, as a member of an organization, I need white stockings available, right? Yeah. And I don't want to get them from the beauty supply store because those rip. I want a nice quality stuff, so all of these things come into play. And that is literally the beauty, the rewarding part of this whole industry and what really goes into fashion.
Mm-hmm. And talk about that, because that planner coming into this role, how are you getting all of these marketing tools, and what type of marketing knowledge do you have to have of these reports to do your role?
And you learn as you go. And I'm gonna share a story. I love telling this story because it's literally about divine intervention. So when I first came back, I moved to Texas for a little bit. I'm born and raised in New York, family's from New York. And I was like, I went to school in New York. So I'm like, I want to get out of New York for a little bit. So I said, I'm moving to Texas. And I went to work for a big company out there that is a department store retailer. And I did 2 years out there, again, still in buying. And I said, I miss my family. Vacations turned into coming to New York. I'm like, New York's not a vacation. I need to go to Mexico. I need to go somewhere. So I was like, you know what? I got my 2 years experience. It was great. I miss my family, but I'm coming back home. I came back to New York. And when I came back, I was still in buying, right? That whole time. So I said, okay, let me start putting myself out there. Let me, try to get some buying positions. And there were some that were great. I tried some opportunities, but it just didn't feel right. So I said, I need to go back home. And home for me is Macy's. And so I reached out to some counterparts of mine that I had worked with previously. And I said, hey, I'm back, let's get lunch, let's talk, what's available. And, my VP at the time, who I reported to, she was still at the company and she was a great person. And she was like, you know what, Clesia, come on in, let's have lunch, let's talk. And when I sat down with her, she's looking through my resume. She's like, you got so much experience in the last 2 years. Like, I don't even, you can't be an assistant buyer. I was still an assistant buyer at this time. She's like, you need to be an associate buyer. There was no associate buyer positions open at all at that entire time in the company. And I knew I was ready to get back to work. I didn't want to wait for something to open up. So, have you ever thought about merchandise planning? And I'm like, no, I wasn't really interested in it. I never really thought about it. But again, I'm ready to get back to work, right? I don't want any holes in my resume and my experience. So I'm ready to get back to work. And I said, you know what, but I'm open to it. Let's try it. Let me interview for it. So I met with 3 VPs for a merchandise planner role. Mind you, I have no experience in merchandise planning, 0. And so I met with 3 VPs, and the first 2 interviews were great interviews, but terrible, because at the conclusion of both interviews, I already knew I didn't get the job. They told me, you don't have any experience, you're great, but you have no experience. So sorry. On that 3rd interview, right, now I'm defeated. Like, I done spent a whole day interviewing. So now the VP comes in, he sits down, and I said, I just want to let you know, before we go any further, I have no experience in merchandise planning. I only have buying experience up until the senior assistant buyer level. However, I'm up for the challenge of being a merchandise planner, and I'm eager and I'm excited to learn. And he said, yeah, I looked at your resume already. I know you don't have any experience, but I don't care about that. I want to know you. I want to get to know you.
Wow.
And after 30 minutes of getting to know me, and I'm going to say his name because he's went from my mentor to my sponsor, and there's a difference between the two, which I'll get to. But Sam Lindsay, and I'll never, and we have a great relationship still to this day. And he, after 30 minutes of getting to know Quasia, he offered me that merchandise planner position, and that's how I got my foot in the door. And I learned the job. First day in, I was like, oh my God, someone made a mistake. And I did that. I've been promoted by him 3 times after that. And that's how I got my first director title at the company. And it's just all about taking a chance on someone. And, and I tell that story because you can learn the job, right? It's math. Fashion is all about math and product, and you can learn the job. So don't be afraid to, step out. But the difference between a mentor and a mentor is someone that, right, will give you career advice and you can bounce ideas off of and learn from, guys you talk to. But a sponsor is someone that actually helps you navigate your career, puts you in positions to win, sets you up for success. And that's what Sam is for me and still is to me, even though we don't work together anymore. We still have those conversations. And so I tell everyone, and I have a ton of mentees, you want to make sure that you have a mentor, and you want to develop a relationship so that you have a sponsor. Because in this industry where I tell you it's so small, those sponsors really do light paths and move mountains for you. And it's imperative, it's so important in this industry to make sure that you have those connections, especially when we're talking diversity, right? Because there are some opportunities, like I said, I didn't have the experience, and he took a chance on me and gave me that opportunity. And now, full circle, the way that I am as a leader, I just hired a girl on my team that has no buying experience. She's in product. She was a product assistant. So she did designing. She had no buying experience. And after 30 minutes of getting to know her, I hired her because that's what I needed to do. And I knew she could learn the job. And now here I am with her 7 months later on my team, and the girl's a rock star. And everyone wants her on her team. on their team. So it's just rewarding to really think about the opportunities that you're afforded. But again, you want to make sure that, there no experience is not linear. And that's something that a mentor told me. Experience is not linear. You can take a different experience and still wind up at the same destination you wanted to be. And when I told my parents that I wanted to do fashion, I wanted to be a buyer. And now I didn't go directly to buyer. I stared off the course, but look where I wound up as a buyer.
That is so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. I know somebody needed to hear that or will hear that, and they needed to hear it when they listen to the replays. There's so much power in that, sharing that. I just stopped for a moment. You talked about mentor, you talked about sponsors, you talked about something that is very important, and it's more than just the resume, it's getting to know that person. And a lot of people don't do that. So anybody who's listening is doing hiring, think about that. Talk about what a day in your life looks like, what a week in your life looks like. And then let's talk about the seasons, which seasons are, peak and which seasons aren't.
So, day in the life, no day is the same, but I will tell you that it is a full day. It is an eventful day. So, I'll start out the week Monday, fresh off of the weekend. We analyze our business from the week prior. What sold, what didn't sell, right? What opportunities are there? If I only brought this dress in, in a small way, because I didn't know anything about it, right? Who knows if the customer is going to respond to this dress? Do I really want to take that big of a chance on it? And then that's when you go to a markdown rack, right? And you see like 20 dresses, all the same dress marked down. Didn't work out too well for the buyer. So that's how it winds up on that rack. Right. So on Monday mornings, you come in and you look at your selling and your business and you analyze it and you say, okay, wow, this dress actually did do good. Let me get that vendor on the phone so I can see when they can get me more units so I can get it to more stores because the customer is really responding to this dress. And then on the flip side, same thing. Wow, this dress has been sold for 3 weeks now. We've had it out in all the locations and it's not doing too well. We gotta maybe let's try to price it, right? Let's offer it at a great price for the customer. Let's see if that helps us move it. No, still not working out too well. All right, well then I might have to get the vendor on the phone. Hey, there's got to be something wrong with this dress. The customer's not responding to it. Did it pass all the fits? Is the fit right on it? Is there something wrong with the fit? Let's check the reviews online. What is she saying online? What is the customer saying about it? Right? Oh, well, it's not lined. There's 5 reviews about it not being lined. Okay, well, then that's a problem, right? Then that's it's a pattern, right? That the customer obviously wanted the dress lined. So now I need to speak to the vendor. Well, we need to either take this dress off of all the stores and send it back to you so we can get it done right. Or you need to help assist us, right, to be able to move through some of these units. So that's a typical Monday. It's just analyzing your business, speaking with all your vendors, and, sometimes everything works out perfect and it's great. So you're just having conversations like, this did great last week, that did great, that did great. And then, you're making decisions on how to move on. Then the next, again, and it changes by the day. Some days I have to look at pricing. I have to say, okay, we got a sale coming up. It's going to be our biggest sale of the season. What are we offering this to the customer at? What is the pricing strategy going to be for this time frame? So when you go into a store and you see the sign that says everything's 50% off, that's a conversation that the buyers for each different area had to have with the pricing team. Okay, what can we afford to offer off at this percentage price? And are we still going to be profitable from it, or are we going to take a hit to our margin? These are all the conversations and things you think about. Then the next day I have to go to market now. Now I'm headed into market because now I need to buy spring 23 product. Now I have to, a whole year in advance, I have to go out now and start shopping for what's going to be available in the stores for the consumers to buy. So now I'm from one day, I could probably see 7 people in a day, back-to-back appointments, hour appointments. I'm going all down 7th Avenue in New York City, hitting up all the different showrooms. And then I'm coming out with, okay, I saw 100 dresses from this vendor, 50 from this vendor. Now I have all these papers, everything in my hand. Now Thursday, I go back now to the office. I lay out all these beautiful CADs. I ask the vendors to send me samples. And now I'm going to lay up my buy. Now I'm going to buy what February of 2023 is going to look like in all Macy's locations. And then I'm going to say, okay, well, February in New York and in the North, in these group of stores, is still a little cold, but we got some nice weather going on in Texas and Florida right now. So I don't want to send them the same assortment. So now I got to tweak it a little bit because the people in Florida, they're at the beach right now. And they want that sleeveless dress, but my New York girl, she needs that sleeve still because it's still cold outside in February. So that's a Thursday. I'm laying out the buy. And then I got to say, okay, now I know what I'm buying. How much of it am I buying, right? How many pieces of this dress am I actually going to sell? Then I got to loop in my assortment planner and say, okay, now what stores are we going to send this to? I know I want to buy 4,000 pieces of this dress. What stores are going to get it, right? That's all that. So we talked about, okay, well, you bought this for the northern stores. So we're going to make the northern stores are going to get it. Okay. Well, now what's the difference between the little Macy's in that little town and then the big Herald Square 34th Street Macy's? The 34th Street Macy's could probably sell 100 pieces of this dress, but that little Macy's in my town down the street barely could probably sell 8, right? So that's then you break it down that way. Okay, so now this store is getting 8 units, this store is getting 100 units, this store is getting 20 units. You do the buy that way. Then you roll everything up because don't forget now I have a budget, right? I got a budget for my merchandise planner. So now I got to roll all these numbers up and say, okay, does it fit into the budget now the way that I envisioned it? Most of the time it doesn't. So then you got to go back and you got to start moving things around. Oh, you know what? I really can't afford to buy that dress anymore. I got to take that out the assortment. But you know what? I'll put it on online only. Well, that'll be an online only dress. So that's how sometimes when you're shopping online, you're like, I didn't see that in the store. Well, because it's exclusive to online. Or you're in a store that's a bigger Macy's like Herald Square, and then you go to your little Macy's and you don't see the same style. Well, no, because in that smaller Macy's, she's really just coming in there for basics. She's not really coming in there for like a full-on fashion leather dress. But that New York City store where that tourist is, or that fashion girl, she's gonna buy that leather dress. And then it's the same thing with price point, right? Understanding, well, what should I sell this dress at? What is a great value to my customer that she's going to pay for this dress at? And then by Friday, I'm sending these orders to my vendor to commit to a whole year in advance. They're taking it back to their factories and they're producing it. So, and there's, trust me, in between that whole week, at the same time, I'm approving marketing. I'm working with the size manager because I need to I sold out in size small. And so obviously my customer, I must be getting a smaller customer. So now I need to relook at my size profiles to say, okay, I need to invest more in smaller sizes, or on the flip side, larger sizes. I'm also in between there. My vendor's calling me, this style didn't make the boat. I need an extension on my PO because of the shipping crisis. The factory shut down in China because of COVID. The styles didn't make it out, or they're sitting on the water, they can't get docked to come in. So I plan for this dress to be in my store this week, and it's not going to make it. So now I got to extend that PO out to the vendor. But then what did the vendor make me do? The vendor made me miss a few sales, right? Because that was a little late. So how do we partner now to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to have to be able to move this along because, I'm still going to bring in that velvet dress, but it's almost going to be warm in New York. So we got to be able to move that velvet out so we can get that summer dress in for her. We can't have velvet on the floor in April. So now how do I partner with the vendor to be able to give you that velvet dress at a better price so that we can move those units right along? Or how do I partner with the vendor and say, you know what, it's too late. I can't bring velvet in right now. The weather's about to change. You have to pack and hold that to next year. We'll try it again next year. Or you can sell it off. Sell it to an off-price retailer like TJ Maxx, right? Like Marshalls. So that's how sometimes, everyone says there's got to be something wrong with those products. There's not necessarily anything wrong with it. It's just that sometimes it didn't work out for a department retailer. Or, maybe it didn't pass an inspection piece. Maybe the zipper was a little funny. So that's how it wound up there. Or maybe we just had too many units of it. We needed to get it off our floor. The vendor took it back and then they sold it off to off price. That's why it's called off price. So that's, in a nutshell, how like a whole week could work. But again, there's so many different components that go into a given job of what a buyer does, and like I said, at the same time, I have to approve marketing. Marketing's going to come in. I have to approve whether this model looks good or not in this dress, or I have to tell the photography studio, the intent of this collection is to celebrate, Black women. So I would love if the photography studio would make sure that the model of this dress is going to wear this dress. It's a Black woman, a darker skinned woman, or whatever, give those specifics. So all of that is composed of the job. And that's why I tell you, no day is the same, because like today, I literally had a whole plan for what I was going to do today. I had nothing on my calendar but this panel, and God had other plans for me today. And that's okay, because I got to partner with people across the company earlier that I didn't think I was going to get to partner with. I didn't get to do anything on my to-do list, but then I started meeting new people. And I got pulled into this meeting to influence here. I got pulled into this meeting to approve this here. So no day is the same in the fashion industry, but the job, right? The work that we do is consistent, I would say, across all buyers.
Girl, this is why you're soaring. Excuse me, let me pronounce that correctly. Okay, see, this is why we're having this conversation, because somebody may be thinking they want to go in this realm and they need to know. You hit on, and for anybody who doesn't know, just want to clarify, PO means purchase orders, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So stay focused, because everything you said, there's so many questions I could dive into, but I got to think about the timing, and it's amazing. There's a lot of power there, a lot of responsibility there. You hit on COVID. You talked about the seasons a little bit. How did COVID impact you, and how can people thinking about this career think about preparing for the future in face of something like that?
So COVID definitely hit the fashion industry hard.
Yeah.
It has definitely changed. I would not be buying spring 23 right now, but because of COVID, everything is earlier, because factories are closing, things are taking way longer to get here to us, things are more expensive. So COVID has affected the fashion industry. I mean, just like we're all complaining about gas prices and grocery prices, your retail prices you're gonna be paying a little bit more for stuff too. I mean, everything is going up. That's a direct result. But everything, that I'm realizing in the fashion industry now is that some of the things that we were able to really be like intentional about, and really, like I said, I wouldn't be buying spring right now. Like I would just be wrapping up October, at this point, and I'm already closing out my Q4, which is my holiday buys, right through January, and I'm literally getting ready to go into spring 23 market next week. So everything is just earlier. It doesn't, for me, I think the biggest challenge is not being able to get a real read on what the customer is telling me that she wants. Because if I'm already going into spring market next week, I don't even get to really see all the spring dresses that I brought in this season, how she's responding to them, right? To be able to know if I should repeat that body next year. So it's relying more now on my gut and fashion industry professionals and the fashion office and the trends and all of these different aspects that help me do my job to be able to make an educated decision to be able to get the job done.
So it advanced the whole, wow.
The entire pipeline is all advanced. And I mean, during the pandemic, there were businesses, like there were vendors that actually, went out of business because if you think about, we shut down, we didn't shop. Where are we going? What are we shopping for? Think about what everyone was doing. They were all home. So the home industry skyrocketed, leisure wear, lounge wear skyrocketed. And that caused me to think differently. I'm a dress buyer. I'm essentially she's going somewhere, right? If you need a dress, you're going somewhere, whether it's a day dress or a social dress, you have an occasion that you need to attend, whether it's work, a conference, whatever it is. So for that whole period of time, she wasn't buying my dresses because she had nowhere to go. So how do I reinvent, right? To stay profitable, right? And to still service a customer. Well, I had to start doing some loungewear type dresses. I had to introduce new fabrications. We all sat home for those months and we ate, right? We were all chefs and we were eating. And I know I gained the COVID-19 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And so, when it was time to go back out, I'm like, I need something comfortable. I can't put on those tight dresses I was wearing anymore. So those new fabrications helped. And that, those stretchier fabrications that she wanted because she gained those extra pounds. And all of those things helped influence my job. And even to where it is today, where I didn't carry, a specific material and, I'll compare it to like terry cloth. It's like a very, stretchy, soft material. That's not a fabrication I carried in day dresses. I mean, now that's a standard. I have to make sure that I always have that on my floor because she's looking for it now.
Well, clearly, let's talk about the skills for the role. Because in listening to you, I have heard a ton of them. Definitely, you got to be multifaceted. But what are some of the other skills that a person should have in, considering this role? The role of a buyer, fashion merchandising, and so forth.
You got to be a go-getter. You have to be able to negotiate. You have to be able to speak. You have to be able to step outside of a comfort zone. So I just get lucky. I get to buy beautiful day dresses, right? But when I started my career, I did young men's. I'm not that customer. I had to learn that customer. You have to be open and receptive to step out of the box and learn something new. Put yourself in another shoe that, someone else's shoe to be able to buy for that. In negotiation skills, like I said, I know at the end of the day what my customer is going to pay for something. So when I go to buy these pieces from a vendor, right, from Carla's boutique, right,
just right, speak it into existence.
Carla's Designs.
Oh, that's a conversation for another day. I'm sorry, but go ahead.
But when I go to buy from Carla's Designs, I know up front, listen, this dress, my customer is only going to pay $89 for it. And then I know, right, that I can't pay more from you, Carla. Like I need it to be a certain price. Oh no, Quasia, that dress, you're going to pay $50 for it. I'm sorry, Carla, I can't do that because that doesn't allow me to make profit margin, right? So now I got to go back and forth with you. Well, Carla, take the zipper off. Like, how much is the zipper? Take the zipper off. Well, that'll probably save you about $2. Okay, let's take the zipper off. We'll just make it a pullover dress. I have some ruffles here on my sleeve. Let's take the ruffles off. That's extra fabric. So all of these things are a part of negotiation to be able to get something to where you need it for your customer. And then I say,
wait a minute. Hold on. So you basically are taking that dress apart to bring it to the level, the price point that you need. Y'all are negotiating about how my designs look so you can make your profit margin.
Absolutely. Now don't get me wrong. There are some brands and some vendors that like Carla, like, you know what, Quasia, it was very nice meeting you. But you know what? I just don't think the relationships, I just don't think that this is where my brands need to be, right? Or we may partner on something else. You know what, Quasia, I can't do it on that dress, but I can offer you this dress at this price with this on it. So it's all about partnering. It's all about negotiating. It's about compromising. And the most important thing is you have to be able to build relationships. I have worked with the same people, and I told you already, I've worked for different companies. So I've already had to, that company in Texas, the people I worked with, vendors, I work with them here in New York for a whole different company. That's how small the industry is. So building relationships and there's vendors that'll say things to me like, Quasia, I'm only doing this for you because you asked me to do this. Those are relationships are important.
How can someone go about locating themselves with the skills that they have or may need to develop, and then finding out where they are, the proficiency level that they have or don't have, and then developing? What tips do you offer?
So it's definitely not learned overnight. When I first started, I was timid. I remember my buyer used to tell me, and as her assistant, you are to say something in this meeting. I don't care what it is, but you need to make sure that you say something. And I've always been a person that if I'm not 100% confident about the subject, I am not going to speak on it. And, she always add value, and it's something that you'll learn. I think if you pull out what your great characteristics are and who you are as a person, and then map out a plan of where you want to go, those are skills that you gain along the way. And I'll share the story about, I have 3 assistants that report to me, but one of them I just promoted to an associate. And when she first started on my team, she was timid, she was shy. She has this thing called corporate anxiety that she calls it. And she just, when she gets me and her together, great. The second I pull my VP in the room for her to present, she tenses up and she freezes and she's not that same person. And it's all about just becoming comfortable with yourself, knowing what your strengths are and expanding upon them. And then also knowing what your weaknesses are, right? And making sure that you give yourself the opportunities to develop your weaknesses into strengths. And that's the most important thing. You have to turn your weakness into a strength. I think that that's how you build character and you build in your career. And, for me, I've always, something that I got in trouble for in schools, I was always a talkative. They tell me every parent teacher conference, she talks too much. Like she's disrupting the class. She talks too much. And my dad said that to me the other day. He said, that big mouth, 12-year-old, 15-year-old, 8-year-old, look at you now. Like, look at you now. Like, I'm just so proud of you. So turning something that you may have seen as a weakness or an opportunity into a strength and using it to your good, I think is something to be learned.
I can identify with you on the talking because I was a talker too. What tips if anyone has questions, please, I know there's a little bit of delay in the broadcast, but go ahead and enter them into the chat so I can share them with her. But talk about that plan and activating a plan. What are some of the tips people should employ to create their plan if this is a role that they... Actually, let me back up. Question before that. Do you deal with any of the packaging for the product and things like that?
So I will influence it. Absolutely. So, if a dress needs to come into the store on a hanger because it's got a lot of beading or, fabrication on that we don't want it to get ruined. Absolutely. Like, I need that vendor to know I need this to be, shipped on a hanger in a plastic poly bag. Or, this is exclusive to Macy's. I want a hang tag on that dress so that the customer knows that she can't go anywhere else except for Macy's to get this dress because it's exclusive to Macy's. Even down to, the way that something's presented. Like if we're going to offer like kind of like a gift with purchase, or some of my dresses, I do jacket dresses, right? And, when you think of a jacket dress, this is a more mature woman, and she loves a necklace that we offer her with the dress. But what we were finding is that people were coming in the store and stealing the necklace off. And so how do we still offer the customer what she wants, because she likes being able to get this jacket dress with the matching necklace, but not have to deal with that, the shortage, as we call it, from people stealing the product off the floor. So now we don't do full necklaces. It's an illusion. It just, comes right here onto the dress. It's not a full necklace. So what are you going to do with that if you take it off the dress now? But it still gives my customer, right, the end result of what she loves about that dress, that it comes with that jewel piece and she doesn't have to worry about accessorizing. Mm-hmm. So absolutely. I mean, we touch on all aspects.
And then the positioning on the floor. I'm not sure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
100%. The buyer, we call them visual direction. So I have to send every single month a direction guide. It's a 1-pager for my area of where all the dresses need to be positioned on the floor, what the theme is, right? How I want it to flow, what the mannequin looks are. So if I have a dress that I bought huge, that becomes a mannequin look. So that I tell the store, this is what you're putting on the mannequin, and it should be paired with a white shoe and a black non-branded handbag, all the way down to those details.
So that's that merchandising piece.
Absolutely.
Do you negotiate that floor positioning with vendors?
Absolutely. So there are vendors that will pay for prime space in a store, or there are vendors that are just more important to a specific location and have to get prime spacing in a store. There are also, specific businesses that is lease space. So if you think about, if you go into a Nordstrom or something and you see a Starbucks, right, that's in there, that's specific to that store that was negotiated, and it's not standard across every Nordstrom or every store that you're going to see that location in there. But all of that is definitely positioned and thought out.
Okay, now I'm gonna go to the other question. Again, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in, because we only have a few minutes left that I will share with Quasia. But let's talk about, because you touched on the plan, creating a plan. So someone who's interested in going into the fashion merchandising and buying, what type of plan, what tips do you offer for them to put together a plan so they can step into the role? And then what tips do you offer them for activating that plan?
So 100%, you want to make sure that you have a mentor in this industry. I think it's important. So your plan should definitely be to find someone in the industry that you has a similar career path that you want to go on, or is the position that you want to be in, to just learn from them, to understand, where the industry is, and, be able to help for them to be able to influence your career as well. As far as putting a plan in place, you do not become a director overnight. Okay. I graduated college in 2011 and started my career then. And I became a director in 2018. So it took me, give or take, 7 or 8 years to get to that position. You will, in the beginning, do things that you will feel this is not fashion as an assistant, right? On a screen all day, entering purchase orders, keying pricing, approving signage in store, approving price changes, all of those things that you will do that may not necessarily be what I just explained of what I do, of picking the product and doing these things. And some assistants, like I said, I give my team that opportunity because I feel like that's how you learn, but that is not an expectation. It's not a standard, right? So, making sure that you understand that at that, you will come in their entry-level positions, but you will work your way up and around, and experience is not linear. That's my biggest thing I want everyone to take away, especially in this industry. By going to do something else in this industry, it is not going to take away from your end goal. Everything influences each other in this merchandising. All of the jobs influence each other. I've seen people go from pricing to buying to marketing to just digital to all of these different things. So, map out where you want to be, but then know that some opportunities arise where your experience may not be linear. And I'm grateful for that merchandise stint because, like I said, I never knew that I loved it so much. And when my position was eliminated, I was so sad because I'm like, wait, you're making me a buyer. I don't want to be a buyer. But it's like, but I did want to be a buyer when I first started, but then I grew to love merchandise planning so much. So definitely, try different things. Like I said, mentorship is important. Get someone, on your team, on your side that is in this role or in a role, and just be open and be flexible, to change, because the fashion industry is an ever-changing environment and it's fast-paced.
Yeah. And for those who are seeking a mentor, when they're approaching someone about being their mentor or even sponsor, what are some things they should not do? And what are some things they should do in that approach?
So I'm very direct. I think that you should tell people up front exactly what it is you're looking for. If you're just looking for a conversation, hey, Quasia, I want 30 minutes of your time just to pick your brain. Say that's your intent. If you're looking to build a deeper relationship, hey, Quasia, I would love to get on your calendar once a month to kind of understand, some challenges that you face, kind of help navigate where I'm going in my career, then be intentional. Say that up front. But definitely, you're not, closed mouths don't get fed. And that's my biggest thing that I tell my team. Your career, especially in this industry, is in your own hands. So you have to navigate all of those partnerships, all of those relationships to get where you want to be.
Incredible. Well, this has been really, really good. I thank you for your look, your delivery is so captivating to me. And there's so much. I know that I'm going to be replaying this and pulling it apart and listening and listening and listening and listening. There's a lot of people who have purchased replays. Anybody who hasn't purchased a replay and you're interested in a career in the fashion and merchandising and buying arena, I definitely encourage you. Right now, you can buy the replay for $10. At the end of this series, starting Sunday, the replays are going to be priced at $19.99. Now, that includes 2021 replays and all of 2022. So you got like 30 people you can listen to for the price of a book. This has been wonderful. In closing, food for thought. What words? We have an audience range from 18 to 44. Anybody looking to break into this industry, whether it's career change or whether it's a student, what words of advice, what tips do you want to leave them with to consider?
Go for it. Go for it. It is the time now, for everyone. Just go after your dreams. Literally go for it. Like I said, get a mentor, find someone that inspires you in that role, and just go for it. Go after it. On the 18 end of it, I will say, look into some of these merchandising programs that are available at some of these companies. Macy's has a great merchandising program that'll give you the stepping stone that you need. And I'll tell you that, if you want to go a non-traditional route, there's also entry-level positions. Look up merchandise assistant positions. Those are entry-level positions. Digital assistants. Look up those assistant positions. And then when you're on, if you're someone that's on the older end of the spectrum, right, 44 and that age, then you may be already established in your career. And it's a conversation that I have with the woman that asked me the same thing. So do know that you may have to take a pay cut, right? You may have to take a title change, but you will get to where you want to be. And don't be afraid, right, to go after what you want to do. Because in my switch of companies, I didn't always, get more money when I switched companies. Sometimes I had to take a pay cut to be able to get to that path or that experience of where I wanted to actually be.
Thank you so much, Quasia. This has been fabulous. Definitely looking forward to many more conversations with you, but thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I just want to let y'all know this woman is just truly a woman of her word. She had an emergency today, but it was important to her to be here so that you all could glean from this information, because one of the first things she said to me, I don't remember how she said it, but so I won't even try, but when we first connected, she shared a concern and a desire to help so that there could be more people like her in this role. So you can have that influence and you can make a difference, not in just in your life, but in our community, just as she said, from that mesh, talking about how it didn't match the skin. So with that said, I'm going to close out and I thank you so very much for this. So have
Thank
a
you
good
so
night.
much, Carla. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for the opportunity.
this has been so enlightening. So thank you. Everybody else is putting in thank you. And so everybody, I will see you. Everybody, look at this. Oh, they appreciate you. So
Absolutely.
see you
Connect
all.
with me on social if you have any questions. I know people get a little shy about asking questions, so feel free to connect with me on social, shoot me an email. I'm very open and receptive to, meet with people. And like I said, this is an industry where representation is super important, and we could use more people that look like me in the position that I'm in.
And that's is it Miss Capri?
Miss Capri with 2 I's.
MSCAPRII. I'm going to put that in the chat real quick so you can know. Also, I was able to set her profile up in the chain of events. It just wouldn't allow me to add the session. So her information, her bio, I believe, no, it doesn't have an Instagram, but it's there. And if you look at my IG page on her profile, her spotlight, it is there too if you miss it from here. All right, well, have a good evening. I will